We finally reached the end of Stage 5 of the COD Mobile World Championship, and Elevate have been crowned this year's kings of Call of Duty Mobile. So today we're going to be breaking down the 5 most important loadouts that led them to victory. Some of these gunsmiths are actually going to catch you guys off guard because I certainly was not expecting them. 2,000 likes and we'll break down the weirdest gunsmiths from the entire event. So if you guys want to see that, make sure to drop a like down below, but we're going to go ahead and hop in. First off, we do have a couple honorable mentions for guns that got used, but not really very consistently. In fact, interestingly enough, pretty much the only scenario where these got used was on Kurahana Metropolis, and both of them were used by PJ. The first of the builds is a high accuracy, decent mobility MG42. One thing that's important to keep in mind is that the rate of fire attachments for the MG42 are completely restricted in the World Championship rule set. Given that the MG42 already has fairly low recoil, it doesn't really have to add a whole lot else in order to stack mobility while maintaining solid range, and obviously the disable with the cherry on top slows down enemies, which means even if you don't get the kill, they're going to be a lot easier to trade. The other loadout, which we didn't see a whole lot, is the bullet spread accuracy R9, with the one non-bullet spread accuracy attachment that you might not see used a whole lot being the RTC 1mm laser. The main reason pro players opt to use this over any of the other lasers is because the red laser is actually not visible to opponents, so you're not going to risk giving away any information. We'll go ahead and move into our top 5. I tried to rank these primarily by how often they got used by the players of Elevate, and even though our number 5 option was really fun to watch, it's not one that got a whole lot of use, although when we did, PJ was popping off. The KRM's obviously one of the staples of the Garena meta, so the fact that PJ is running it even in the World Championship shows you how viable it is. And PJ actually managed to drop a 50 bomb on Q9 using this loadout on standoff. As you would expect, this pretty much goes full on hip fire, full on mobility, as there are very few scenarios where he actually ends up ADSing the weapon, with no stock and speed up kill giving you maximum speed, extended light barrel and marauder suppressor giving you maximum range, and the RTC 1mm laser giving you boosted hip fire without giving away any unnecessary information. Coming in at number 4, we have a gun that pretty much nobody expected to be used in the World Championships because it really hasn't been meta since last year's World Championships. The Grau, while it is definitely a very solid weapon, just can't really keep up in regards to time to kill in the majority of ranges against meta SMGs and assault rifles. The one advantage it did always have is that it was really a solid in-between between ARs and SMGs because it had solid mobility while having decent time to kill at a bunch of different ranges, and somehow Kalo was able to make this work on a ton of different maps with a very unique build. You'll almost never see a hipfire laser used on an assault rifle, but that's actually what Kalo does with this Grau build, along with a no stock for extra mobility to play this like a true SMG. The rest of the attachments are pretty standard, the 50 round being the go-to magazine, Cronin Sniper Elite to give you some sort of bullet spread accuracy since you are going to lose out on that a little bit with the no stock, and the Nexus barrel giving you a nice combination of damage range, bullet speed, and recoil control as well. Now coming in at number 3 spot, we have a gun that for most other teams would have been a lot higher on the list. It was kind of the gun that was expected to be the dominant assault rifle in the World Championships, especially following the restriction of the rate of fire attachments for the BP50. And the Odin, while it definitely still played a role for Elevate, didn't get nearly as much usage as I would have expected. Interestingly enough, it was used almost exclusively in Control and Search and Destroy, and more than likely a big reason for this is that pacing is a big reason that Elevate are as dominant as they are in Hardpoint. Their usage of high mobility weapons and gunsmiths allows them to reinforce the hardpoint at a pace that most other teams normally wouldn't be able to, especially with passive AR setups. And the Odin, while it has a lot of firepower, obviously isn't going to be able to get you from point A to point B nearly as quickly, and is going to struggle in closer range engagements unless you're already ADS. Now that's not quite as much of an issue whenever it comes to Control and Search and Destroy, which makes sense why that would be the primary modes that Elevate use the weapon. And the build that the Elevate players use for the Odin is also one that I've never quite seen used before. Well, I can't say I'm terribly surprised to see the Colossus Suppressor, the Light Sock, or the Granulated Grip Tape. The FMJ and the Operator foregrip caught me off guard. I think especially because Elevate tend to be a more aggressive team, I kind of figured they would use the light barrel, given that that's the attachment I see the majority of players use. But when you look at a lot of the scenarios where the Odin's being used, they are for information checking and holding tighter angles when you're already pre-ADS. So the fact that the Operator grip gets thrown on there makes a lot of sense whenever you look at the recoil for the Odin and understand that accuracy is paramount for making this as effective as possible. Coming in at number 2 is a gun that I kind of figured would make its way back into the meta with the restrictions on the BP50, the Type 19 was definitely very commonly used throughout the competition, although probably more so for Elevate than just about any other team. The really interesting thing about it is that there were two very different builds used by two different players. Susanoo and Kendi were the two primary Type 19 players on this team, but interestingly enough, they used the weapon in two very different ways. One of the big upsides for the Type 19 is the fact that it does have Black Ops attachments, which usually includes opportunities for you to build the weapon out with crazy mobility, and that's exactly what Susanoo did. His build featured attachments that I had never seen anyone use for the Type 19, but when you look at the breakdown, it makes a lot of sense what he was trying to do. The polymer grip, not too terribly surprising, but crazy upside on the ADS time to make sure that you've got that mobility you need in close range. Fast reload mag is almost universally used for the Type 19, so that one wasn't too terribly surprising, but the Merc foregrip is one I definitely did not expect to see for an assault rifle player. But once again, going back to the pacing that Elevate play with, it makes a lot of sense that you want maximum movement speed, sprint speed, and strafe speed. He also opts to use the tactical suppressor, so obviously you sacrifice some of that range upside that other players would normally get in the North Industry heavyweight suppressor, but he's able to maintain his mobility and especially his ADS speed, and then on top of that stack extra strafe speed to make this feel like a true SMG. Kendi, on the other hand, uses a much more traditional assault rifle build on the Type 19. A lot of you will probably recognize this as we've seen it used by a lot of different pro players, but using the accurate support of long barrel alongside the North Industry heavyweight suppressor makes a lot more sense when you play a post-up AR, which is the role that we see Kendi take a lot on this squad. Coming in at the #1 spot, there's absolutely zero question that the Fennec was the most important weapon in Elevate's success in the World Championships. The dynamic SMG duo of PJ and Yopi has long been a staple for this Elevate squad, with Kalo getting thrown into the mix with the SMGs as well. Every single one of these guys uses pretty much the exact same SMG build when it comes to the Fennec, which definitely leans more into the accuracy side, but that's not terribly surprising with how much recoil the Fennec has. With phenomenal sprint speed and movement speed, and also the fact that the Fennec has one of the fastest rate of fires of any weapon in the game, the gun's 5-shot time to kill is still faster than the majority of other weapons' 4-shot or 3-shot time to kills. Especially when being able to achieve sub 160 millisecond time to kills when landing an upper body shot or a headshot, the Fennec is really tough to beat in close quarters combat, and because the majority of the Elevate players also play gyro, their recoil control is also top tier, which makes them able to take mid-range gunfights with the weapon as well. This has become almost the universal gunsmith whenever it comes to the Fennec. Obviously, most weapons you would tend to use a granulated grip tape, but because the recoil is so high, they do tend to go with the operator foregrip for maximum recoil control. And the RTC steady stock gives you additional bullet spread accuracy and horizontal recoil control as well. Obviously, having the mythic version of this gun gives you a huge advantage over any of the alternatives, but if you're a master of recoil control, feel free to toss off the steady stock and give it a try with the red dot instead. That is gonna wrap things up for Elevate's top 5 guns in COD Mobile's World Championship. Hope you guys did enjoy. If this was helpful, do me a favor, drop a like down below, subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll catch you guys in the next one.